about communications and getting the message out, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on how social media and Web 2.0 technologies how do you think that's affecting public relations and communications?
Well, in some ways it's making the job that I used to do, it's making it obsolete almost. In that, you don't have to rely on people who specialize in communications to get your message out there anymore. It used to be pretty complicated because the access points were limited. They were limited to radio stations or newspapers or television stations. And believe it or not, those were things that people didn't necessarily, because they didn't interact with them with any regularity. So people didn't really know how to use the media. They knew how to read a newspaper, knew how to watch television. They just didn't necessarily, the average person doesn't know how stuff gets on there. So they would hire people with some sort of expertise in communications. Well, that has all changed really in the last 10, 15 years with the advent of Facebook and Twitter and even a host of technologies that are moving beyond that have made it easier for the average person to be able to communicate beyond the bounds of his or her family or church community or social group, whatever it might be. It has also, though, created a whole, depending on how complex one wants to extend their reach in social media, it's created a whole new avenue of consultants, right? People who really understand how to maximize the use of social media. It's really the communication specialist who does not today specialize in social media is really not going to last very long, because it is, while it hasn't yet replaced television, in American politics anyway, it is reaching the point of being close to eclipsing it. And I think as we progress in the future and the technologies become even more user-friendly, that we're likely to see it. Again, I don't think it will happen in the next 4, 5, 6 years. I don't think it will fully replace television. But it's clearly being utilized more and more. Virtually every member of Congress, really anyone who's running for public office today has a website. They usually have a Twitter feed, a Facebook account. So how is it changing it? In some ways it's making it easier to communicate your message. Right. Look at what we saw with the Arab Spring. I think we're seeing it even now in this new uprising in Egypt. We've seen it in places throughout the world where people are organizing using social media. They don't, it used to take a long time to circulate a flyer around your social groups or have word of mouth kind of travel, meet at this place at this time. Now it can be done instantly. You meet in 10 minutes at this place and suddenly you have 10,000 people or more there. But I think what people have to realize is that while there are some great examples of how social media has been really used effectively, if you expect tomorrow to simply turn on a Twitter account, to start a Twitter account, and that you will magically have, 100 or even,
1,000.
However many. I mean, it takes time, right, to build these things.
Yes.
So, in some ways it's kind of slow. Your following will be slow at first, and then you it sort of grows exponentially after a certain point. It isn't something that can be activated quickly, so people should be aware of that. If you expect to use social media for developing public policy or running for public office, you need to probably get started on that now. Don't expect that you can just click this on and make it work tomorrow.
Do you think that the rules still apply to good communications? Do they still apply to social media as well as to the traditional media?
Yeah, I think absolutely they apply. I mean, it's all about the quality of your message finding people who are going to support it, realizing this is a difficult task, that you have to repeat it. You can't tweet one time and expect that you've achieved your goals. You have to reinforce these things over and over. The idea has to be a sound one. It has to be one that people will back. It is going to be difficult to achieve it, and it does not happen overnight. You need to start work on that right away. The higher up one is in terms of their position in government, there is a cadre of followers that should be around you, where you might be able to build a social media presence faster than someone who is unknown. But still, it's not something that you just hatch overnight.
No.
You need to build it, and you need to reinforce that message across other media as well. Rarely, I think, does one achieve victory solely through social media.
So you're saying advocating for a complete package, that you're still addressing the traditional media, but you're adding the social networks as well,
Yeah,
so that you're getting a full package.
it's a
Makes
tool
sense.
in your arsenal. It is. You can't rely solely on it. Yet the day might come when you can rely solely upon that. But I think it would be risky to depend entirely on social media, especially for people, regardless of where you are in the world. If you are in a position of public trust, if you've been selected either through appointment or election to be in this sort of leadership role, people are going to expect to see you. You're going to have to do public events and public speeches and parades and
Right. So all those things we talked about earlier, you have to do those because
you got to mix the old-fashioned with the newfangled. You got to have that right combination, because people, you want to know that there's a human being behind this computer screen.
Right. Well, I mean, just because I tweet doesn't mean I don't also read my paper. And
Yeah,
then I'm
absolutely.
getting it in two places, and thus it'll be a stronger message.
Yeah, and think about the messages that you're tweeting, the things that you want people to know. They want to interact with you and hear about it and see it, and especially if you're encouraging them to do something. You cannot simply tweet that one time and think people are going to do it. And that's true. It doesn't matter what it is. Social media is no different than any other media in that you must repeat your message. It's got to be a quality message, and it's going to be challenging to find a coalition of people, to build a coalition of people who think like you,